For one considered a chameleon, Bob Dylan never changes. He is ever the Gemini trickster. Little Richard, high school rocker, Woody Guthrie, acolyte folky, electric Kool-Aid acid rocker, born-again Christian, blue-eyed Sinatra crooner. And on his most recent album, JFK assassination commentator. None dare call the countercultural icon a conspiracy theorist. Read the song, Murder Most Foul. Once again, the unwashed phenomenon has waded into baptismal waters for the purpose of departing them a mite muddier in his wake. For more than 60 years, the former Robert Zimmerman of Hibbing, Minnesota, has gone to great lengths, or at least his handlers have, to sequester his most intimate and human thoughts, feelings, and personality behind a facade of stoic mystery and unfathomable sensitivities. One suspects that the real Bob Dylan might be a tad more mundane, or he may be a relatively empty vessel for whatever spell the global techno-occult, the GTO, may deem fit to cast through him. Perhaps Beat Generation poet laureate Allen Ginsberg was spot on, musing a Dylan that I don't believe he has a self. But whoever or whatever he is, Dylan is a favored device in shaping the thinking segments of individuals in at least 3 successive generations. Whatever he does, the powers that be make sure he gets a lot of ink, whether it's his devastatingly raspy rendition in old age of Christmas songs, crooning Sinatra tunes on albums whose titles mock the Trinity or pay homage to the angelic rebellion inspiration for his 6 decades of minstrelsy, or on his most recent studio production, his first original song and social commentary since Mayan Apocalypse year 2012, the 17-minute JFK assassination ditty, Murder Most Foul. This epic ballad has received thunderous accolades from the gatekeepers of pop culture since it debuted on Dylan's 39th studio album, Rough and Rowdy Ways, exactly 2 weeks after President Trump's Friday the 13th announcement of a worldwide CV-19 crisis caused an epic panic and had toilet paper flying off the shelves, bound for fortified bunkers across the land. My son Nick and I went grocery shopping on Fridays as usual. I had long abandoned the mainstream news and had little idea of what the heck was going on. I asked a few questions and figured it out. I said to my son, this was a moment we would always remember, a moment when everything changed. And it was bigger than 9/11, and it was bigger than the JFK assassination. I didn't realize until it was brought to my attention by Casey Brown's Enter the Stars YouTube channel that all 3 of those events were linked by a 19-year metonic cycle, whereby the sun and moon returned to the same place on the calendar. 1963, 2 metonic cycles back from 2001, which itself was 1 metonic cycle from 2020. 3 moments that we remember exactly where we were, 3 moments when the whole world changed forever. In those same grocery stores, at that time hysterically emptied of bathroom amenities and drinking water, one can often spot special edition glossy magazines commemorating Bob Dylan or someone else the GTO power elite wishes to wedge into the consciousness of the populace. Ever so often you'll see one of the Grateful Dead, a mass MK Ultra creation of the Tavistock Institute. This is the public arena, and whatever is pushed to this degree is social engineering, mind control, and ritual magic. Like everything else, it makes money because it's promoted. The same can be said for the bestowal of public honors. The power elite honors that which it wishes to foster, and that is what sprung to mind when Dylan received a Nobel Prize in 2008. Promotion and recognition are not rooted in commercial and artistic quality as much as we believe, those of us who prefer the illusions of logic and a modicum of control in this world of shadows. It is rooted and aimed at expanding mindsets, zeitgeist, and axiomatic assumptions conducive to globalization. The NWO of the GTO. Murder Most Foul is exceptionally well written, and kudos to Bob, assuming he is indeed the author. I spent most of my life in corporate sales, enough of it to know that when great money and influence accrues to a brand, the whole food chain will put as much product under that brand as possible. There are pundits who believe Bob Dylan was a dummy corporation from the beginning, claiming that syntax, word choice, and other analytics indicate that the undoubtedly accomplished poet and lyricist Leonard Cohen may have authored some of young Dylan's most profound works. In this Barnum and Bailey world, who knows? I have been planning for several weeks to do a video on Murder Most Foul. I did not find out until today that some reviewers believe it to be based on the King Kill 33 JFK assassination theory, which was the subject of the two videos previous to this one on this channel. Blogger Fred Balls has posted an essay on the song entitled, the essay is entitled Masons, Mobsters, and Spooks, Oh My. With all due respect to an excellent writer, I can't tell if he's just arrogant in his ignorance or on the subject of the JFK assassination, or if he's a deliberate deceiver. He offers the usual mush of half-baked skepticisms and is more conspicuous for the literally hundred of salient points and credible testimonies he ignores. Nonetheless, perhaps he's correct that Dylan's POV may be the opposite of the song's conspiracist narrator, who discerns patterns where none exist or are without meaning in Ball's estimation. Dylan is putting forth the demoralizing perspective that life is random, he says, and death will come when it comes. Balls then champions the old Gnostic chestnut that each of us is our own authority and should decide for themselves what is the truth. Balls commences by lauding Dylan as deserving of all the attention Murder Most Foul has received because he considers the Zimmerman a master of the Luciferian counter-Christ virtues: apostasy, anarchy, disobedience, and interestingly mentioned, freeloading. Easy to believe. From the get-go, Dylan was so disrespectful of the rights and livelihood of others that he flat out lied about his life to interviewers to create a false mythology he could sell to the suckers. A fantasy filled with hoboing, riding the rails, as opposed to the reality of his second-story bedroom in his parents' house and crashing on the sofa in a friend's dorm room. But tall tales sell records, and boy did he ever want to sell. Some people close to Dylan will tell you he is materialistic and greedy in the extreme. Young Joan Baez was rather shocked by Dylan's love of money. Hoping to make a lot of money was the first thing Dylan mentioned when he met Beat Generation founder William S. Burroughs. It is one reason why Dylan prefers stadiums to the more intimate settings more complementary to his confessional style. So it thoroughly amazes me that Dylan is perceived as a rebel against, instead of an agent on behalf of, the power structure and its elite. Many will put forth the lame argument that it is because he sells. Again, citing my years of experience in corporate sales, I can tell you that nothing sells without vigorous promotion and money. Well-promoted mediocre fare succeeds, while unpromoted genius will always languish. The Bob Dylan of Murder Most Foul is, I think, serving the dark lords of the mammon he craves, as he keeps his end of the bargain, as he says in the now infamous Ed Bradley interview, with the chief commander of this world and the world you can't see, as he puts it, widely assumed to be Satan. The service most finely rendered in this work, is the revelation of the method. Dylan tells us what the global techno-occult did to us. No one has to tell us how powerless we are to do anything about it. Well, we could have done something, but we didn't. We still could, but we won't. The poetry of this song is incredibly rich. If interested, I do encourage you to check out the many fine explications online. For our purposes, we're going to stick to some of the lyrics and images that pertain to that future which the techno-occult is prodding us towards. Dylan straight off tells us that JFK was a sacrificial lamb. The purpose of King Kill 33 being for the blood of the king to fertilize some mass impact on society. In this case, it is the degradation and destruction of family, faith, community, being gentle as a lamb, and more. It is a mockery of the sacrifice of Messiah, which redeems us. This sacrifice was intended to damn us, initiate the ambience for being created in the image of the beast, who leads the fallen angel rebellion against God. It is a ritual of humiliation. The president is, quote, shot down like a dog without any respect. They blew out the brains of the king. Extends the connection to King Kill 33, and is also an extreme version of the shearing of the sheep, again the Lamb of God, and head shaving ritual, which Casey Brown has defined as symbolizing separation from God. The GTO is trying to tell us that they can force this separation and place us beyond redemption. They can, but only if we willingly give up our human birthright for a transhuman string of beads. This humiliation ritual is compounded later in the song, quote, they mutilated his body and they took out his brain. What more could they do? They piled on the pain. But the technocrats who serve the fallen believe they can quantify everything as they usher in the reign of dead matter, prophesied by John Dee, magician, scientist, and spy master for Queen Elizabeth I, and by the Terminator films, incidentally. In the song, the conspirators are shocked in the ritual autopsy to discover, quote, his soul's not there where it was supposed to be. And they have been vainly searching for it for the 50 years since. This echoes the Gnostic belief of imprisonment in matter in Dylan's lyric, only dead men are free. There is, in fact, a scholarly book from 2019 by Kabbalistic Rabbi Aubrey L. Glazer, which examines in depth the Gnosticism of Bob Dylan, entitled God Knows Everything is Broken, the Great Gnostic American Songbook of Bob Dylan. Murder Most Foul tells us that when the president was murdered, thousands were watching, but no one saw a thing. It was the greatest magic trick ever under the sun. This demonstrates the efficacy of thousands of years of spellcasting against our God-given minds. Under the Sun drives home the primacy of the sun god Apollo, whose name pervaded the NASA space program, as does that of his twin sister Artemis in our current day, as the feminine is supplanting masculinity everywhere. As the orange-haired Joker president demonstrated at a speed that was warped, this man who honors Apollo with idolatrous art in his penthouse on a contrived floor number 66, the number of Apollo, and honors his twin Artemis in the new space program, Apollo brings disease and the cure. The Joker took a lead role. If he lives, he may be coming back to become the last president. The Artemis space program allegedly will take us back to the moon. Hence, Of the 70-plus songs referenced in this work, the one that mentions the moon directly is That Old Devil Moon, an image of great affection for Dylan mentioned in his 1967 song, I'll Be Your Baby Tonight, from the John Wesley Harding album. The mention of that old devil moon is followed by a litany of song titles, the two immediately following closely connected to it spiritually. Anything Goes by Cole Porter, echoing Aleister Crowley's Do What Thou Wilt philosophy, and also delineating with good cheer America's slippery slide down the moral slope of sex, profanity, illiteracy, and the degeneration of manhood into silly gigolos. Memphis in June likewise reflects the mystical bent of that old devil moon. Memphis, Tennessee was the death site for two other kings, Elvis, the king of rock and roll, and Martin Luther King, another sacrifice to King Kill 33. The American city was founded by Masons, including Andrew Jackson. It was named after Memphis, Egypt, the ancient capital and religious center until Nicene Christianity was made the religion of the Roman Empire. Memphis, Tennessee is known as the birthplace of both the blues and rock and roll, two magical workings laying the foundation of the counter-Christ culture. The Masons symbolically recreated their secret Nile River Valley in the Mississippi River Valley from New Orleans to Cairo, Illinois. Yes, it's pronounced Cairo and not Cairo. The area surrounding its northern terminus known as Little Egypt, also the name of a song Elvis recorded, inspired by the original Hoochie Coochie sexualized dancer of the 1893 World's Fair in Chicago of the same name as well. The next two songs Dylan mentions are Lonely at the Top and Lonely Are the Brave. Perhaps this refers to the relatively few who run the world and the few who oppose them on behalf of the Most High God. Next up in the song litany is Houdini spitting in his grave. His stage magic of illusions and escape pales in significance to the real magic in Dealey Plaza, the site of Dallas's first Masonic lodge, a magic spell of mass blindness and amnesia. Harry Houdini, incidentally, has been revealed in recent years to have been a lifelong intelligence operative for the U.S. government. Next up on the hit parade, Dylan exhorts the unseen archivist to play Jelly Roll Morton without naming a specific composition of the early New Orleans jazzman. Jelly Roll Morton was stabbed in the chest and head at a Washington, D.C. club called the Music Box. This event wrecked his health and he died 3 years later. The wounds in the event may contain significant Twilight language. Relative to the subject of Murder Most Foul, remember from our King Kill 33 videos, the Gaelic form of Kennedy means head wound or ugly wound. The chest injury reflects the enemy's recurring symbol of the spear or serpent penetrating or bursting from the chest. The lead character of Donnie Darko describes time travel as a spear through the chest. The demonic progeny of the fallen jump from body to body, an experience perceived as time travel. Nephilim Egyptian royalty had their DNA preserved as the liquefied organ's black goo stored in canopic jars, in the hope of being reanimated in a real or artificial vessel at some future date. The sharp piercing point through the chest is also the sword or arrow of Apollo Artemis. Again, see Casey Brown's Enter the Stars channel on this. In 1928, Jelly Roll Morton married showgirl Mabel Bertrand. The alias Clay Bertrand was said to be used by Clay Shaw, charged with conspiring to kill President Kennedy. Shaw was also the name of the D.C. African-American neighborhood where Jelly Roll Morton was stabbed. The DA of Jelly's native New Orleans, Jim Garrison, was informed that Shaw used this alias by Gene Davis, who owned the transgender bar The Midship in the French Quarter next to the rooftop nightclub in the Marriott, where I was a bartender and manager for several years. Dylan next mentions Lucille by Little Richard, hearkening back to his first musical love in high school, where his stated yearbook ambition was to play in Little Richard's band. This is fitting, as following 10 more song mentions, each a fascinating rabbit hole in its own right, he ends up this 17-minute ballad with Play Murder Most Foul, his own song, creating a full circle Ouroboros. The snake grasping its own tail, reminding us of the illusion trap the enemy keeps us in until we are freed by faith in the sacrifice of the Redeemer. Before parsing the old devil moon image, we had left off at Dylan's proclamation that the assassination and cover-up was the greatest magic trick ever under the sun. We now know it is the Apollo sun. The very next image is the Howling Wolfman, his name capitalized and repeated 3 times in the song. A key JFK assassination number, 3, the Wolfman howling caused by the Artemis moon. Dylan immediately invokes the number 3 again, its importance magnified by conjunction with the song's title phrase, rub-a-dub-dub, it's a murder most foul. We all know the nursery rhyme, rub-a-dub-dub, 3 men in a tub, foreshadowing the soon-to-be mentioned 3 tramps arrested that day in Dealey Plaza. Again, see our JFK King Kill 33 videos, part 1 and 2, on this channel. Dylan then reveals the inextricable link between JFK's assassination and the sex, drugs, and rock and roll counterculture about to be unleashed on the planet. The psychedelic transition from the black and white to the color world. Hush, little children, you will understand. The Beatles are coming. They're going to hold your hand. We'll pick up here in our part 2 of JFK Bob Dylan's Murder Most Foul to post in a couple of days. This is Gumbo Craig, and this is Walking Out of Babylon. All glory to the Most High God. Shalom.